College football fans, welcome back to the College Ball Show. He's Marshall. I'm Chris. And we're here to talk some college football. Now, obviously, we're coming off just another example of why there's no debate to be had here. We love to banter back and forth shit. We were just doing it before we got on here. But there's just no argument to be had that shows that college football regular season is the best season of them all. And here we are, 7 unranked squads, not just ranked versus ranked teams getting beating other ranked teams, right? Auburn lost to Texas A&M. We know that, right? Because that was the only ranked versus ranked for the whole, on the schedule. But this is what makes this year special. This is what we talk about when it's the best regular season. I mean, 7 unranked squads get the job done. And there was some almost, like we've mentioned before. Alabama almost lost to LSU. The rushing numbers in that Bama game just blow you away. Tulsa and Cincinnati was really competitive. There was some other games in there that they just kind of snuck by or just got the job done. But yeah, man, it was a really fun week. And we did get now 2 official rankings. So we'll kind of blend both weeks, talking about it midway. So we'll recap, then we'll talk about the official college football rankings playoff stuff, because there's plenty to talk about. Obviously, Cincinnati. Obviously, a lot of people talking about not just Cincinnati, but Big Ten favoritism. What the hell was Mississippi State and Minnesota doing in there? Now they got booted out from losses, but yeah, there is definitely a debate or two to be had, which we will do. And then this week, I mean, even a game like number 6 Michigan at Penn State could be ranked versus ranked. It's not, but there's there's nothing stopping it from being it, really, as far as just watching. Number 8 against number 13 Baylor, who just lost. Now Oklahoma needs to finish strong. Number 19 Purdue, who just knocked off their second top 3 opponent, is visiting Ohio State, and that spread is 20 points. Texas A&M and Ole Miss, another ranked versus ranked. NC State, Wake Forest, another ranked versus ranked. Arkansas, LSU, not ranked versus ranked, but you never know what's going to happen in that one. So this is definitely a very interesting week upon us. So we're going to get all into it, previewing and predicting a variety of what's going to go on in week 11. Of course, we'll go back and forth with the betting lines banter, talking about against the spread, the upset of the week, the games flying under the radar and all that good stuff. But if this is your first time listening to the College Ball Show, welcome. It streams live right here on blogtalkradio.com/Rope-A-Dope Radio. You don't have to go to Blog Talk and Rope-A-Dope, though, if you don't want to, and download the show directly there or listen to the browser. You can find the platform for this College Ball Show, Rope-A-Dope Radio, on Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, Player FM, TuneIn, Stitcher, Spreaker, almost across the board. We're also part of the Grueling True Sports Podcast Network. While you're at it, why don't you head on over to thegruelingtruth.com. And one more thing, if you're thinking about cutting the cord, or you're not quite happy, I got something for you. It's called Direct TV Stream. The prices start as low as $69.99 a month. It's the best of live TV and on demand. No annual contract, no hidden fees. If you upgrade to the Choice or Ultimate packages, that gives you 3 free months of HBO Max. Plus, you get to enjoy regional sports networks with no additional fees, which, as we know, has been a problem lately. And if you go all the way to the Premier package, you get HBO Max and Showtime included. That's Direct TV Stream. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and bring in my co-host, Marshall, see how he's doing on this fine Wednesday afternoon. We got a lot to talk about, whether it's off the field or on the field. What's going on, man?
Life is pretty good. I got a basketball tournament for the rest of this week, so there's no more teaching. It's just coaching basketball and chilling in sweats. So life is okay from the work perspective. I was happy to get out of work today and now just focus on basketball and no teaching for the next 5 days. And I do the same thing again next weekend too. So coaching life can be crazy, but it can also be kind of fun. and rewarding when you don't have to teach as much. So with that being said, my opening rant is a very positive one. Okay. We do this podcast because we love talking sports. We also enjoy trying to make people money and making our own money. I said last week, the 5-star golden lock, much like I did say about Kentucky a couple weeks ago against LSU, was bet Purdue, bet Purdue, bet Purdue. And I followed my own word. I wasn't a wimp. And I made a nice chunk of cash, paid off some bills. And honestly, Chris, it really wasn't even a game. I mean, it was close, but never in that game did you feel that Michigan State was going to blow them out. Purdue came out early and made the stud running back for Michigan State fumble. I believe that was his first ever fumble in like 380 carries. And then went down and scored. David Bell had himself a nice game. And my main point for wanting to bet for Purdue with the 3.5 points I got with them was Michigan State's quarterback just wasn't that good. You have a stud wide receiver. You have a stud running back, but your quarterback is average, and a defense that was having its highs and lows. So hopefully some people did listen to our podcast, and hopefully people did go to the window, and hopefully people did bet Purdue, because that was a really nice tick. And I guess I was a little bit of a chicken, and I took them with 3.5 instead of money line. But hey, we've had our crappy pick of the weeks, but I've been giving out kind of for the last 5 weeks on the show, kind of like my one favorite pick, just off looking off point spreads, which we normally see come out right at the start of our show, whether we're doing a show on Monday and Tuesday. This week we're a little bit later on a Wednesday, and I'll have one, I'm sure, this week, but something just catches my eye. And I've had a couple of those go for me this year, and it's kind of fun to see. But I hope you bet Purdue. I hope our podcast brought you some joy and brought you a little bit of dinero to spend on whatever it is in your life you like spending money on.
Well, not whatever, but yeah, pretty much anything.
That is legal in the 50 states.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even know about that. But anyway, yeah, you're right about that. The feeling of the game, I looked at it. I just went back and kind of traced the score again. Even when there was a fumble, then I was thinking it was like 30 or 40-yard drive or whatever. The fumble at the beginning, not the beginning of the game, but the beginning of the third quarter, and Michigan State cashed in, tied it up 21-21. And I did feel at that time, okay, this might happen. They may overtake them now. We'll see. They kind of needed that, but that was not the case. They just ran over them after that, and it wasn't running actually over them. They only got 58 yards. They carried it 31 times, though, so they did kind of keep that there. Their longest run, Purdue, was 11 yards. But you know what? When you're 40 of 54 for 3 touchdowns and 536 yards, I don't think you got to worry about running it too much. This O'Connell slowly but surely has gotten better and better, and he's a quarterback that's definitely going to be, in the picture here. And Purdue in general, I mean, they've had their ups and downs, but I'm glad that they got ranked, because, especially where they were, because when you beat the number 2 AP team, Iowa, and then you beat the number 3 team in the official, and they're still up high, that, you got to do something about that. There are some other losses on there, sure, but I do like how they got that in there. Now, the Bama LSU game, I got to say, we were talking about, there was a big stink from some folks saying, why did they pick the other game rather than the CBS game? This should be the CBS. CBS passed on it. And, on the surface, it seemed like that made a lot of sense. But this is college football, and this is the regular season. Now, even though Young did throw the ball pretty damn well for Alabama, I mean, you don't see this ever with them. I mean, the Robinson Jr. had 13 carries for 18 yards. And obviously, when you lose yards, that goes right to rushing yards. You can see Young has 9 carries for negative 22, but he has a 15-yard run in there. But, dude, 26 carries, first of all, just that alone is low for them. 6 yards in rushing. Not even 1 per carry, dude. 0.2 in a tutty. I mean, this is that That blows me away. I can't remember the last time that I saw that statistical thing. I mean, we've seen them get beat. We've seen them, they had too big of linebackers and a mobile quarterback could stretch them out, and then they tweak that. And, they've had their ups and downs. They're a dominant, force, obviously. But I got to say, I can't believe they were able to hold them to that yardage on the ground. 6 freaking rushing yards. And, they had 9 penalties, which you don't normally see out of Alabama, too. That one was one of the biggest shockers. Even though it wasn't a loss, that was the biggest shocker of the week for me.
Yeah, I didn't really pay much attention to the game. And I was kind of bouncing around Saturday night, and I happened to look up at a TV at the restaurant I was at, and I was like, I really froze, because at that time, LSU had the ball around midfield, and they were down 6 points, and with 5 minutes to go, I'm like, are they going to win this damn game? Holy shit. Because they were a 28.5 point underdog. And this is a LSU defense who, for the most part this year, has been a complete sieve, not even close. Yes, you can say LSU picked it up to beat Florida, but Florida also had 450 yards that game of offense and outgained LSU's offense. So what has happened with Bama, where you could not move the ball on a defense who literally for the whole year has been absolute trash? This is the same LSU defense who at the start of the year, when I did give out a pick, which was a wrong one, you watched UCLA literally make LSU's defense look like they were in a different, they were a non-power 5. So I know there's something to be said for playing in a rivalry game. These are schools that obviously have a bad blood. It's a rivalry. Coach O maybe isn't the kindest person in the world, but for the most part, when it's been a rivalry game there at LSU, his guys go up and play for him. And, he's obviously going to be fired, and the administration's maybe not too keen of him now of how things have gone off the field. But for on the
just
field,
don't talk to him at a gas station, you'll be good,
Yeah. He clearly had his guys ready to play. And it was a cliche answer, Chris, but I guess a reporter asked him earlier last week of Coach, you're a 28.5 point underdog. What are your thoughts on that? And he simply said, he's like, I really got nothing to say, but this is a game of college football. These kids compete. We beat Bama last year. This is something where we're going to be ready to go. Just get us on the field and give us a fair chance. And they had more than a fair chance. So, yes, Bama won, which obviously they needed. If they had lost that game, they could have kissed everything goodbye this year.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I was very surprised. And if you're Bama now, you beat a team you were favored by 4 touchdowns by 6. And again, still mind you lost to an A&M team who at the time that Kelzakis, the A&M quarterback, had been complete trash before he beat you. That was kind of a coming out party for the guy. But and again, every team has their
fair, that's when you look at that, now they're a pretty high ranked team. So
they were, but up until that Bama
Florida,
game, you'd not see.
They struggle with Florida. Look at Florida now. That's a better example in my mind.
But I guess that quarterback hadn't done much until that Bama game.
Sure.
But it just makes you wonder, what's quite going on with Bama? And again, you can't expect a team to be on top forever, just as Clemson has really fallen off a cliff. Now, Bama's not fallen off that big of a cliff yet. They're still 2 in the country. But this is not your typical Saban team, and the rush yards are staggering. But maybe, Chris, just for once, this is not your typical Alabama massively owns the line of scrimmage type team. Again, I know that they did move the ball against A&M, but at least for the span I watched of that game, I saw a Alabama offensive line struggle to pass block, which you almost never see. In that, and I remember telling you on our podcast, I was like, well, God, when I watched that second, third quarter, I was amazed at how A&M controlled the line of scrimmage. And sure, they came back in the fourth and whatnot, but it's such a rare thing to see an Alabama line get shoved around, because if, mind you, to wrap this whole thing up, Mac Jones is not fleet of foot at all, but that guy would chill in a pocket and could tie his shoelaces and throw a pass. Like, this is the first offensive line from Bama where they're maybe not a massively dominant team, and they have lost a ton of talent for the past handful of years to the draft. So maybe we're seeing a little kink in the armor, and they're not going to be a guaranteed walk in the park to the championship. I mean, hell, you still got to get to the SEC title game. So it's just interesting to see. Oh, hell, they still have Auburn. So, yes, it's I think we're probably just surprised because it's Bama, and we've been so used to hyping them up for the past 10, 12 years. And, hey, for once, they're a little more non-immortal, I guess you could say, Chris.
They've had a couple years in there that, they lost 2 or whatever, or I think that one year they were 10-3 or something like that.
Yeah, you're right.
But other than that, and it hasn't happened in a while. So, yeah, man. And when it has happened, it's been like the kick six and stuff like that, like just crazy stuff like that. That didn't Ole Miss catch a ball and it bounced on, like a deep ball and it bounced on someone like
Bo
that.
Wallace, yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So when it's happened, it's like, all right, I mean, it happened, but damn, that's heartbreaking. It hasn't been like where you see them only put up 16 rushing yards and stuff like that. That is a good difference there. The other ranked versus ranked A&M Auburn was like a field goal, type of thing. It was 3-3 at half. The second half was rough though for Auburn. If you look at their offensive possessions, they came out, had a nice drive, missed a field goal. A&M came back, kicked a field goal, moved up. Then they had a 3-and-out punt. Then A&M kicked a field goal. Now they're up 9-3. They fumbled in a scoop and score. Then they come back, punts. Then they come back, turn it over on downs after their offense or their defense gave them a fumble. Now it was after a long run, if I recall, and then an interception to close the game. So they had a rough second half. Bo Nix finally kind of fell on his face, and A&M just keeps it moving. Ever since that win over Bama, it's they've really bounced back after looking like crap against Colorado and losing to some teams they shouldn't. They're back and they're looking pretty good. But that that second half was just a grinded out, almost like a Big Ten game, and they just couldn't get over the hump. So A&M stays alive technically, even with that. That I suppose are they. Hold on, who else did they lose to? That's right, Mississippi State. They had lost to before that. So they lost to Arkansas and Mississippi State back to back, and since then, they're looking pretty good. Now they got a big game coming up that we're going to talk about here in just a little bit. But we knew that was going to be a grinded out game. I think we both picked A&M to get the job done. Another big game, Wake Forest. It's crazy. North Carolina, I think this is the first game that North Carolina gave up 55 points and still won the game. They ended up winning 58-55. That was a freaking wild-ass game. TCU snuck up and bit Baylor, who had built all the way up to 12th. Now Baylor, has to bounce back the week of. There was a variety of these games. Mississippi State had looked good. Arkansas beat them. Kentucky, had stumbled, but then ended up winning. Now that Tennessee started getting their stuff going. That's 45-42. I mean, 31-28. A lot of close games here across this whole spectrum. And Fresno State got their butt kicked by Boise State. I did not see that coming. This was a fun-ass week, man.
I think just to go over a couple of those, it was a slugfest of Auburn and A&M, but that's because both those defensive lines are really good. And that's why Auburn might have a chance, because if it comes in the battle of trenches, they're a better team than Bama. I know the rankings don't show it, but defensively they are. And that's why A&M also beat Bama, because the line of scrimmage was a battle they won.
And they got Bo Nix too. Bo Ryan.
And I'm happy A&M won because I actually hit that one too. So, Chris, it was a beautiful Saturday. It truly was, to see Purdue bang the drum and then A&M take care of business. I was a very happy man, because then on my Survivor League on Sunday, holy shit. We had 49 people left in our NFL Survivor week last Sunday, and we got down to 6. Apparently no one thought that the Cowboys would lose to the Broncos and the Jaguars would beat the Bills, but all that happened. So he went from 49 people trying to win $8,000 to 6 people. And that's the freaking life of the NFL. But anyways, speaking of other kind of shocking things, you could say it was a bit of a shock for TCU to beat Baylor. But if you look at that from a couple of angles, a good buddy of mine who is a Baylor fan says TCU always plays them tough. That's one of those rivalry games where, as a college football fan, every year a schedule comes out, you're thinking, okay, this team is going to be a pain in the butt. And TCU is at to Baylor. And also there had to be some just extra little rah-rah energy for TCU, because Gary Patterson was kind of sent packing. Well, actually, they asked him to finish the year. He said, no, I'm going to leave. I guess the year had kind of fallen apart a little bit. His defense has digressed over the last handful of years. They've not found a good quarterback. I guess the coaches were kind of getting after it with each other a couple of games for the last couple of weeks. So it's been a little bit of a rough year. But in general, you would imagine most of those players have been playing that ass off for their guy. And, they were happy to finish on a good note. So you kind of saw that, hey, coach left, let's go win this damn game kind of angle occur. And it did. So nice win for TCU. I suppose that still keeps them very eligible for a bowl. And, hey, Arkansas, a team we had hyped up a lot during this year, and then went through probably, I would say, the toughest gauntlet of a schedule in the whole country, period. Hey, they have not quit yet. That is still a hell of a good team who's 6-3 and 2-3 in conference. Their 2-3 conference record is probably as misguided as one can have for a team. They knocked off Mississippi State, who we both kind of wondered why they were ranked quite as high as they were. So, hey, credit to Arkansas. You went through a damn gauntlet for 5 weeks, and you come back and win a game off a late missed field goal. And the other SEC game we predicted,
they still got to play Bama too.
Jesus,
they got to play Arkansas at LSU at night, and then Bama too.
That's not even fair. That they're doing better than the record shows, but I would assume the fans, players, and coaches know that. Hey, Tennessee, Kentucky. We predicted it would be a close one. Vegas made it a 1-point spread. And Tennessee had their weird game against Ole Miss. They played a powder puff. I think they had a bye, and they came back to win that game. Or I should say they walked into Tennessee and won 45-42. That was pretty much a close game throughout the entire evening. So you're right, Chris. It really was just a great weekend of college football. Though I think we kind of hit on the main games. I will say, as we scroll down, Pitt, a school who throughout all of our years of doing this podcast is normally a school that throughout on a given year would upset like Miami or a Clemson or Pitt would always do something crazy and finish each year with like 6 or 7 wins and be like pretty much 500. This year, Pitt actually has a legit chance to win the ACC. So if you're a Pitt football fan, I can only imagine the happiness you're feeling after having a bunch of 500 years and, having the occasional upsets. Shit, now you're kind of in the driver's seat where you actually could win an ACC title, which I'm not a Pitt fan, but shit, that'd be cool. It's someone different than Clemson, so why not? It was a very fun weekend, sir, of college football. And what I like also is that as we get down the last couple of weeks here, the matchups are going to continue, and a lot of teams in the top 25 have to keep playing each other, which will make the finishing touches on this playoff get even spicier, which we'll get to. But yeah, it was a great week of football, and you're right, this one coming up on paper looks even better just off the matchup spreads and rankings.
We talked about how the Gophers, even though they're my squad, I was tickled pink. I was like, yes, we got a ranking. Like, I was so happy. I knew we didn't deserve it, but I was really happy. Illinois basically did what they did to Penn State and just shut them down, ran them all over the field. Minnesota couldn't finish drives. Offense stuttered. They lost their best wide receiver, who's just been in and out. We've really needed him, Autumn Bell. He's been in and out. He shook himself up in the second half and wasn't able to, or in the first half, wasn't able to finish the game. Sounds like he's going to try to give it a go this week, though, at Iowa. So we'll see how that goes. Utah is now ranked after just walloping Stanford 52-7. That's one that I wondered how that was going to go, if Stanford could kind of sneak up and do a little bit better than people expected. That was not the case. I'm sure Oregon wanted that, not to happen either, because of, they need that to look a little better. Like I mentioned, Boise State was a pretty big shocker. My Miami squad on the other side did another tight-ass game. It's been 4 in a row or 5 in a row, where it's just one-score games. Miami did get it done, though, 33-30 over Georgia Tech. They had some self-imposed issues that made that game harder. But once again, the young gunner for quarterback, man, he's really looking the part, no doubt about it. Let's see, there was another game I was going to talk about. Well, the one that we're finally off the schneid, and now 6-4 on the season in the crappy pick of the week. Old Dominion, back-to-back wins for Old Dominion. They got the job done 47-24 over Florida International. And after, now they've won back-to-back games, dude. They're on a roll now, dude. They're on a roll. But finally, the road team in the crappy pick of the week won. It was the first road team all year. So 6-4, that's still in the money. Let's see what we do this week, but that was also very nice as well. Any other items you want to touch upon before we get into some playoff rankings debate, sir?
I would gladly just say Texas scored 7 points. Iowa State scored 30. That is my beautiful, very nice and sweet recap.
Dude, and the coach, I don't know if you've seen the video, but the coach, when they're on the bus after the game, he's just lighting into them. I guess some of the fellas were kind of, laughing and stuff, a little loosey-goosey after an ass whooping. Coach didn't like it. He's like, hey, if you don't want to be on this team, go. Some of you guys need to go in that transfer portal then. If this is a joke to you guys, go in the transfer portal when we get home. This dude was screaming at him. It was awesome, dude. It's nice to hear that from a coach. I don't know, if the alumni likes that, go in the portal, but yeah, dude, there's this video that someone has, well, it's kind of audio actually, because you can't see the coach, but you can see they're on a bus. You can see they're just taking off, and he's just laying into them. 4 losses in a row now, Texas?
I think so, yeah.
3 or 4. And then you got Florida getting their ass whooped, acting like this is like Clowney's there and Spurrier's coaching or something for South Carolina. The Gamecocks just completely destroyed Florida, and all of a sudden you think you got a coach to turn the corner, and now now they're going to be turning the corner looking for a new coach maybe. I mean, that freaking – you could see the last 2 years it was building. Last year it was like, okay. And then even early in this year when they almost beat Bama, it was like, dude, he's got something going there, Got to give him his credit. I'm not a big fan of him, but I got to give him his credit. I thought last year he was kind of making up excuses and all that. But, man,
sure.
Almighty. Now all of a sudden Florida might be looking for a new coach. Oh, boy.
Yeah, South Carolina is not a good football team. They're not. And to get beat 40-17, I got nothing. I don't, that blows my mind. But again, I could care less. I'm not a Gators fan, so I enjoy seeing some of those top premier echelon programs just have rough years, just because a lot of those coaches are a bunch of pricks, or at least I'm not fans of a lot of the top-notch coaches in college football. And I'm sure a lot of people say that about my guy Lane Kiffin, so I know that goes both ways. But yes, that was
that kind of gets you there too. To be fair, you know what I mean? Like you're probably not the nicest.
You're right.
You gotta let it. You know what I mean? You gotta have that so to speak. So talking about this here college football rankings last week. Oops, I went under the wrong thing. Last week, where the hell is the actual? Why am I? ESPN sometimes just messes this up. Okay, hold on. There we go.
Just the rankings tab in general. Because that playoff prediction thing is stupid.
That's why it kept knocking me to all of them. Like, I don't want all of them. I just want this. Okay. So, obviously there's only, this is only the second week. A lot of people had issues saying Cincinnati's going to get screwed again. And, we can't talk about did they actually get screwed in not being in the top 4, or did they get screwed where they should be higher ranked last year? I do think that they should have been higher ranked. I'm not 100% saying that I think they got screwed for the top 4, I'm saying. But they should have. In some of those games, they were getting pushed down, when they probably shouldn't. This week, it's kind of funny because they didn't play all that good, but then they bumped up. A lot of that had to do with losing, though. Michigan State, definitely. So, why don't you just kick off some of the items that you want to talk about? One of them is Michigan being over Michigan State now, which is kind of a little head-scratching, especially if it ended this way, which I don't think it will, because we have an example of Oregon, Ohio State right above it. Cincinnati, like I said, I mentioned they're still undefeated, got by Tulsa 28-20. They ended up moving up a notch. Oklahoma sitting at 8 at 9-0 is something that when we talk about the biasness, like having a certain amount of Big Ten teams in the top 25, or the SEC having Mississippi State in there when they have 2 unranked teams that they lost to, I thought that was like, what are you guys doing here compared to Wisconsin or Iowa, to be honest with you. But we could say the flip side of the conspiracy, though, when it comes to the Power 5 conferences in general, Oklahoma's a name brand, as we know. It's pretty crazy that they're low, not crazy in how it should be, but crazy as far as when we talk politics and name brand. I got to say, I'm still kind of surprised that undefeated Oklahoma is at 8, though. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm not arguing that they should be higher, but if we go off of some of the obvious things that it seems like this thing skewed to, that kind of surprises me as well.
And I think your intro into that, and along with just some other shows I listen to, the biggest issue is it seems that the committee always gives people different answers. And the things you're looking for to qualify as making it to the Final Four are the moving goalposts. And we've heard people use that example against like the non-power 5s, like a Cincinnati last year. And to some extent, it's true. It does seem to be each year there's a common theme of, well, it's the strength of schedule, it's head-to-head, it's how strong is your conference. And I think they do, rightfully so. People call bullshit on them. They do have a different spin of answers. And if there was a set, solid, hey, this is what we're looking for, cool. Or just come out and be honest, say, hey, it's a subjective poll. Like, just give an honest answer. But I think the committee always does, Chris, try to spin it in a different way. And those answers can get spun around differently on them within a week or two later. And then you really kind of have to wonder, like, well, what are we trying to accomplish here? And I can't blame schools for being pissed about, their outcome of their season being affected by the lateral moving goalpost. I do think this year, as you said, how much do we value head-to-head matchups? Because right now you're looking at Ohio State, Oregon. and you're looking to Michigan State, Michigan. Now, obviously, the Michigan State and Michigan, Ohio State, they all have a long ways to go because all three of them they're gonna make a mess of themselves. So someone's gonna lose out of those teams. But as of now, it is showing.
I like how you
Oregon's
put that, by the way. They're gonna make a mess of themselves. That was good. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, you're good. You're good. Oregon is ahead of Ohio State now, but let's just say these teams continue to win out. You're gonna get the love of your conference, which if I would venture to bet, would bump Ohio State up over Oregon. Which, as a Ducks fan, I would be pissed if that were to happen, because let's say Oregon wins the Pac-12 and Ohio State wins the Big Ten, okay? And one of those teams has to be in and out. Well, if Ohio State gets in over the value of their conference, okay, fair is fair. But then
hold on, you
really
said one of those teams have to be out. Hold on, sorry, not to interrupt you, but you said one of those teams have to be out wide. They're 3rd and 4 right now.
Well, let's just say for this hypothetical, let's just to play. Hear me out, okay? So let's say it does come down to Oregon, Ohio State. One of them has to make the final spot, and let's say Ohio State gets in, Oregon gets bumped out. It really would go a long way to even having less of a chance of why the hell are you going to want to schedule any if you are a big school, why ever schedule any non-conference matchups that are fun to watch for college football fans? Because I think this scenario could happen, but I would see it happening to where you probably would give a school like Ohio State the nod due to the conference, but due
to the quality of wins too, not just the conference.
Yeah.
Because obviously they would have more quality wins, right? Yeah, that'd be fair to say.
You're right.
Doesn't mean it's right, but
yeah, it would just really disvalue the. And again, we've had years where we've done this podcast where the non-conferences for some schools like Bama, well, all right, we're going to play Troy and like Northeast Missouri, Mississippi State. A lot of these big schools do take powder puffs, and I don't, and especially with this playoff going to get bigger over the next couple of years, I feel that this the non-conference could get even more fun. So I hope that doesn't happen. But again, it'll be really interesting to see if this does occur. Again, who's moving up where? So how do they value head-to-head?
So should Bama? Let's get into some right now, though. The hypothetical school. But should Bama move down because they barely struggled? Should Oklahoma? What I was saying too. What about Oklahoma? Why aren't they ranked higher? Should they be there? They're undefeated, or just because they haven't looked good doing it?
I think that's interesting too, but I think the other issue is the fact that besides Georgia, no one else really has a great resume this year. Bama looked like trash against LSU. Oregon, they've not been the most exotic looking team either. Okay, they've had some losses
beyond week 1 and 2. They've not looked great. You're correct.
No. They've won 4 games, I think, by touchdown each, and those are games where they were expected to blow people out because the Pac-12 is not a deep conference. Michigan State, Michigan, okay, they both have recent losses, so you kind of get why they're there where they're at. But yeah, I guess in fairness, though, the committee is holding a very mediocre schedule to Oklahoma. So I guess one way to answer that, Chris, is the fact that no one's resume is that great besides Georgia. So no one is really causing a stir in the top 10 because none of them have a really great, impressive thing. So if we are debating who should be where, it's I guess it could come down to who are you a fan of? Like the Alabama, okay, you lost. You had a bad loss to A&M. You had a very unimpressive win.
It's not a bad loss, though.
You were a 19-point favorite. That's a bad loss.
I hear you, but they're sitting at 11 right now, Marshall.
Well, at the time, though, A&M was unranked, and they were playing like trash.
Sure, but I'm saying right now, that's what you have. Well, that's what they look at, though, right now.
You're right. Okay.
They don't look at it as like an unranked team because they're looking at their rankings. They got them 11th.
Fair. So Alabama's resume is okay. Oregon's resume, they've had I think 4 wins within a touchdown. Ohio State, they've been beating up people, but they've been playing a pretty good amount of lackluster teams. Cincinnati, they're doing all they can, but they've had their last 2 wins have been not near covering the spread. And we just talked about Michigan State, Michigan. So, yeah, I think that everything about that for now is pretty fair because no one else really has reason to complain or bitch about where they are because your resume is not that good compared to the people you're surrounding yourself with. So, for now, I think everything is pretty fair, Chris, just because, yes, no one is really standing out besides Georgia, who should for sure be number one. And barring a massive disaster is pretty much locked in because if they lose to Bama in the SEC title game, no big deal.
Right.
That was your one loss of the year. You're still in.
Yeah.
Even if they lost, well, let me quickly look. Georgia, for the remaining schedule they have, they're going to Tennessee. That should be a win. They're playing CHSO.
Well, wait, there's 105,000 people in that stadium, though. What are you talking about? It's the most intense stadium in the nation.
That was for Lane Kiffin. They got up for Lane Kiffin, okay? So Georgia walks into Tennessee. It will be a very loud stadium. I agree. Then, oh, good God.
Georgia Tech.
Just so you know. No, but in between that, Georgia plays the Charleston Southern Buccaneers.
Yeah, but that's because they put that stuff at the end. Their bullshit game at the end. They started with Clemson.
I'm just laughing because I've never heard that school my whole life. That's all.
They started with. To be fair though, they started with the road game at Clemson.
Oh no.
That's why it's there.
Oh sure. I'm just amazed. I've been
club.
A sports fan my whole life.
Good club.
The Charleston Southern Buccaneers, and you always look to drop on me the ESPN matchup FPI index. Georgia, 99.9% chance to win.
That's a legitimate. Hey, they got a 0.1, dude. That's not bad.
Theoretically, you have to make it a 0.1 because of statistical ways of things that are happening in life. But yes, they finished Georgia Tech. So Georgia's going to be in. Georgia's in the dance, and their three fellow dance mates will be very interesting to see. Chris, what were your observations so far as we looked at the playoff? Which again, this should probably be the most fun and debatable playoff prediction we've had so far out of all the years they've been doing this, because you don't have the guaranteed, well, Clemson and Bama are in, who else is going to join the party?
Yeah, it might be that way, but it might be clear as day too by the time we get there, because you can also look at that Baylor TCU stuff down the stretch of that year in the first year of this, I think. So, but since everybody's just freaking out about Cincinnati, like I said, I thought they could have been ranked higher than 6 last week. That's fine. I thought they could have been higher than 7th or whatever they dropped down. I think they could have been higher last year. I don't know if they should have made it in. I don't believe so, but I get it. But a lot of this is just a little over the top because here we are saying, oh my God, they're getting screwed, and they're ranked the highest they've ever been ranked when it comes to this stuff. So now they're up at 5. Now the problem is they're probably only going to, as long as Houston keeps winning, they're probably only going to have one ranked team to play because SMU lost again, so they're not going to be ranked. And the way, like the Michigan State, what this tells me is they think Michigan losing on the road the way they did at Michigan State means more than losing a little more handedly, I guess, on the road at Purdue. That right now that supersedes because Michigan had a lead and how they do go off of how the game went. And if you got a little lucky to win the game, then you get lucky, you win it. So if they close this season, clearly if they both win out, Michigan State's going to be ranked above them. I do believe that fully. But their point is, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong, their point is that an at Purdue loss is a little lesser or a little worse, I guess you could say, than at Michigan State. That's to clarify that, I guess, right? I mean, that's what they're telling us anyway. Oklahoma, that does surprise me, though. I'll say that. I will say that. That shocks me that they're at 8 at 9-0. I'm not saying they shouldn't be there. I'm just saying what surprises me, that surprises me. We talked about this before, and I heard this in places too, and there's that Las Vegas show. They were talking about Notre Dame and how if Notre Dame wins out, they'll pass Cincinnati, And I think that's ridiculous. I think that's hyperbole. I think that's conspiracy factor because they don't have a ranked team to even play. And look at the teams in front of them anyway that they got a hopscotch. So I don't think that's going to happen. Oklahoma State sitting at 10, still has a chance to kind of do their thing, no doubt about it. Baylor was in that scenario until they, lost. So Baylor loses on the road at TCU. They only go down one spot. They have 2 losses. That kind of makes me go, really? Okay. Sure, I guess. It's kind of weird. I am glad that San Antonio got in there. Utah had a nice win, so they're in there. Arkansas snuck in there. So, yeah, I mean, I can't really – the Wisconsin 5-3 and now 6-3 did throw people off where they ranked them. I thought Mississippi State they were ranked higher, so I would have put Wisconsin up higher than Mississippi State. But I didn't have a problem with that because of their strength of schedule, and all their losses are against ranked teams, and we saw how close those games were, and what happened in those games to lose them. But also they just beat 2 ranked teams, so I didn't have as much a problem as having Wisconsin in there. Any other items before we go to good old Week 11?
I will say the reason I brought to you before our show about how Cincinnati, I think they could get screwed, is because there's the amount of money coming in on them to miss it. I believe like MGM Sportsbook, which obviously is now across the country, not just Vegas. They're making lines for all these teams of you can bet if the team makes a playoff or misses. And the money on Cincinnati to miss is like flooding in the market. So it makes me think, okay, like people who understand the game more than me are like saying no matter what, the committee doesn't want Cincinnati in, which is probably true. The committee probably doesn't want Cincinnati in. But as we just detailed, with a lot of the top name teams playing each other still left in this year, and the fact that they probably could have a lot of multiple losses, would the committee ever put in a 2-loss team from a Power 5 conference against an undefeated Cincinnati team who would have done their job? I think that drama would play out, but it has surprised me. I think you made great notes, Chris, that Cincinnati is sitting okay because they're around a bunch of people who have to play each other. Cincinnati doesn't. They have to play some teams in their conference who are okay, but they're not going to face the fear of the other teams. So the money's throwing me off. So we'll see how that plays out. But that's my last part. And again, this will get more dramatic and fun as we go down because I think Georgia's in. The other 3 are going to be a fun debate, hopefully, and none of my teams are in. So that's just something we can enjoy on our podcast. If this was USC involved, I'd be having emotional rants one way or the other.
Right. And it really, the only reason why I bring it up because I did hear it discussed a bunch too, and also because of the head-to-head thing.
Yeah.
Technically, that's another head-to-head that Cincinnati's above them, technically right now. So now, once they get, if Cincinnati gets another loss, well, then that's going to be probably the issue because that's going to be a worse loss, more than likely. It's not to say who they lose to, but just kind of giving the mentality of it. But the head-to-head, I just don't see Notre Dame jumping up that high because of all these other opportunities, Oklahoma, all these other teams, they got to play each other. Well, someone's going to come out of there. So it doesn't mean I think Cincinnati's going to make it in the top 4. I just don't think Notre Dame's going to pass them if they're undefeated. That's basically what it comes down to that. All right.
That's fair, brother.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like I said, I'll be the first one to, say that I was completely wrong if that goes, sideways, which it's capable of doing, no doubt about it. I just think some of the stuff is a little hyperbole to where they add all this extra stuff. And you're like, dude, it's not that bad. Because there's plenty of people that didn't think Cincinnati should have been in the top 4. They just thought they should be ranked, you know what I mean, higher than they were last year. So, and look at how they played. They played pretty damn good against Georgia in that bowl game, too.
Mm-hmm.
They had a lead. They probably shouldn't have lost that game, but they played good. Okay, Oklahoma, speaking of, sitting at 9-0. Oklahoma name brand, 5.5-point favorite on the road at Baylor, who just, had been in a bunch of tight games and managed to get the dub. They got a nice win on BYU. Oklahoma State, they did lose, but West Virginia kind of came in there kind of strong and looked pretty good. But, going into it, they only had lost to Oklahoma State. Now they back-to-back loss. And so it's tough to, like, obviously some of that TCU stuff that you said plays into it. Clearly they were also looking ahead probably too. What says you about this matchup? Because, you know, Oklahoma has been a different squad with a different quarterback now. And can we judge them a little different beyond just scraping by getting W's?
I honestly don't know. Just looking from Oklahoma's resume, I mean, okay, you had a Nebraska game, you beat them 23-16 in a game where Nebraska special teams were absolute trash. West Virginia, you won by 3 at home the following week. You beat K-State by 6. You beat a Texas team who's getting worse and worse and worse. You beat TCU. That was really for the coach. They're having a tough year. Okay, that you won 52-31. Okay, cool. You needed your freshman quarterback to make a heads up, I'm going to take the ball from my running back play to ice the game, or else KU could have come back and won. That's an awful, embarrassing win. And
that would have been
you beat
horrendous,
Texas,
dude.
and you beat Texas Tech, who just fired their coach. So you, in your last 3 games, you've beat a school who just fired their coach, one who was going to in the future, and you beat a Kansas school who's not known for 2 shits about football. So could they beat Baylor? Sure. Like Oklahoma's, I mean, I'll trust Lincoln Riley in a game to have a pretty good offensive game plan. And I do think that the young quarterback is better than Spencer Rattler. But it's really hard to say that Oklahoma would ever win more than a touchdown, because unless you're playing a team that's you're going to get a coach fired on, they've not won a game by like double digits against anyone impressive for the whole season. So that probably goes to show why they are where they are in the playoff power rankings, or the playoff predictor thing. But if we're talking about Baylor, who again is obviously a team who's probably out of the Final Four situation, but they're still having a hell of a year. They're ranked 13th. You beat West Virginia better than Oklahoma did. You beat BYU, who's a respectable team. You beat Texas by 7, and you just lost TCU in a tough spot. So I really, honestly, Chris, and they beat Iowa State. I think these are about 2 really comparable teams, and it's just I feel we don't know quite as much about Baylor just because they maybe don't get the hype, or we don't see them quite on ESPN as much. But I'm going to take, goddamn.
I still think Oklahoma, winning's better than losing twice, but I hear you.
Oh, for sure. Oh, yeah. Oh, agreed. I'm going to take Oklahoma to win. I just think that it's going to be a 1-score game, because Oklahoma's not blown out anyone this whole year that was an impressive opponent. And I think Baylor has shown, for the most part this year, they have a pretty good defense. Their offense has had their issues. But I'll take Oklahoma to win in 1-score games, because I think that's the team they are. But if you're looking at things in an optimistic way for an Oklahoma fan, and yes, okay, you're at 8 now, but you probably have as good of a chance to creep up the playoff rankings as any team in the country does, simply due to the fact that you're about to have a gauntlet of a schedule. Oklahoma plays Baylor, who's 13th, depending on what you're looking at, 13th. Then you play Iowa State, who is unranked but is back on track this year. Then you go to your arch rival for Bedlam in Oklahoma State. And if you win those 3 games, now you have 2 ranked wins in the top 15 and a quality opponent at Iowa State, and you're going to replay one of them in the Big 12 title game. Oklahoma really does control their own destiny. Again, I don't think this team is good enough to win all 3 in a row in the regular season and to finish on a good note, but the potential is there, Chris. It's there, but it's just they've not shown glimpses of the regular team Lincoln Riley has had in the past handful of years.
And they did have a bye, so I think that plays into it a little bit too. Get a little rest, map out some stuff. Maybe they can get an early lead. I got Oklahoma winning on the road against a Baylor team that's going to go down the back-to-back probably here. All right. Number 4, Ohio State and number 19 Purdue. It's a 20.5-point spread. The over-under 62. Both of them actually have decent defenses. On paper, it's kind of crazy to think, but on paper, Ohio State puts up 20 more points than them a game. Now, Purdue's played tougher teams, so that has to play into those statistics, of course. And they cannot run the ball. I mean, they average 77 yards per game, but they also average 332 through the air. Problem is, Ohio State averages 352. Are we just looking at this spread? You're not going to call Purdue on this one, are you? Or are you going to say Purdue with the spread? Because 20 points, it does. Vegas, man, they've done this a couple times this year, and we've kind of tracked it. And you're looking at it going, man, that's a mighty attractive 20.5 points.
I think you got a bet Ohio State or stay away. Purdue, their last 2 out of 4 games have been massive upset wins. And now you're playing possibly your best opponent of the year at this point. I think you're asking for too much even touching that spread. I don't think they have a chance. I mean, obviously you have a chance, but I think that just with how their last couple weeks have been and just the highs and lows of emotions,
right?
I mean, you got them for Iowa, you smoked them. You got them for
down.
Sparty, you won that game. Like, now you got to go to Ohio State and play a team who's probably playing the best football in your conference. Like, damn, that's a lot to ask. Just looking at a just perspective of schedules and the kids and the emotions of it, I think it's bet Ohio State or stay away 100%. I'm sure people will take Purdue because 20 is a lot.
Right.
But would it surprise you if Ohio State won by 20, 28 points? No. Like, and that's a super tough spot for Purdue. You got to celebrate last week. You beat the number 2 and 3 ranked team within a month period. That's effing awesome. So now you got to play a team who's again really good. Like, no, and that's not even a bad loss. That's just a lot of highs and lows of emotion. So personally, I would say bet Ohio State or stay away.
And Wisconsin beat them 30-13 too. So if they can put up that many points, there's a good chance Ohio State can. I think that's a good way to put it. But bet Ohio State or stay away because that 20.5 is so tempting at Vegas. Just gets you there like, did you see him last week, dude? I mean, they put up a butt, dude. Are you serious? He threw for 536 yards, and then they get beat. All right, let's double these up. Texas A&M, number 11. We've been talking about them a lot, and unfortunately, we've been talking about this other team a lot this year. Number 15, Ole Miss. A&M, a 2.5-point favorite on the road. Hemingway Stadium. They're going to be bumping. They're going to be jumping. It's been a little while since Ole Miss has beat a ranked team. They beat Arkansas at the beginning of October. They lost to Auburn. What do you think here? I mean, A&M's coming off a nice win over Auburn. You think they can keep it going to A&M? They obviously, don't get mad when I say this, but they have the better coach in Jimbo Fisher. Okay. I don't care what you said or how many hands get raised or anything like that. They got the better coach. So what do you think here, man? I mean, think your squad Ole Miss can pull this one out? It's not like A&M is this offensive juggernaut. They don't even average 30 points a game, but they have a better defense.
No comment on the better coach. Moving on.
Well, it's a proof. There's proof of it.
Well,
one got a natty and one doesn't.
Okay, but for true offensive knowledge, Kiffin's got him beat their overall head coach. Sure, I'll give it to Jimbo. Yeah.
Yeah, because Jimbo Fisher's offense in the past has just always sucked. He never had any skill players,
Kiffin's got a better mind, in my opinion.
So if Jimbo goes to Alabama, you think that offense is gonna be pretty good or no?
Yeah, I don't think him and Saban could work together as well.
That's for sure. And then who beats him? Who beats him as the tree? We're not going to get into this. I'm sorry. That was a low blow.
I think that, speaking of my boys, Kiffin,
I think the big issue for them lately has been their wide receiver core has been really beat up. And yes, Ole Miss has actually been a good team around the ball this year, but they've not had the healthy weapons we saw at the start of the year when Corral was literally leading the Heisman race, was chucking the ball and running the ball almost effortlessly. And for the last handful of games, they've been playing like good football, but the weapons that Corral has been used to have been injured and banged up, and the offense has become more one-dimensional. So Kiffin's high-flying offense and running has now become just more running. And I'll give credit to Corral. The guy plays like a damn running back. When he's a quarterback, he's been beat up. So I think it's going to be hard for them to now play a team who probably has the best interior they've faced all year. And it's a tough spot. So you got to hope if you're Ole Miss that your wide receiving core is a little bit healthier again, because you're going to struggle really hard to run the ball against A&M. So I'll never pick against Kiffin. So I'm going to take Kiffin and Ole Miss to win, but that's the heart talking. If we're talking X's and O's, you're in the battle of the trenches. I think you got to favor A&M. Now, obviously, Ole Miss has a much better quarterback and a playmaker. A&M's got a better line of scrimmage and defense. So I hope my boys get it done. It's at home, but I'm picking Ole Miss. I would not touch the game from a gambling perspective.
And I'm gonna go with the Aggies. I'm gonna go with, like you said, the line of scrimmage, and just think that they're gonna slow them down enough so they can't operate. And much like, obviously Ole Miss is way more explosive, but that idea of their weapons, they haven't had their weapons, and I know just from watching the Gophers not having their number one, and then the rest of them been in and out of the lineup too. It's tough. It's very tough. So I am going to go with, it wouldn't be an upset because they are the favorite on the road, but I'm going the Aggies. Then we have another ranked versus ranked, 12 versus 16. Wake Forest was unbeaten. They got beat. We talked about that game, a crazy game, 55-52. And NC State kind of sneaking out a good year. I'm actually going to go NC State on this one. Wake Forest has a damn good offense. Hartman has just been putting up numbers, but, Leary is 25 touchdowns and 3 picks and just a couple hundred yards, less. So they've been doing some damage on that side. Also, they've I wouldn't sit there and say they played a much tougher schedule. But when you look at Wake Forest, there's Old Dominion. There's really they still don't have a ranked win. So, and I'm not saying NC State, their resume is awesome because they beat Clemson. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that either. They just lost to Miami. But I'm going to go NC State on this one, which is just a very minor upset. It's only 1.5, and Wake's at home.
And I will join you on that. I will take the Wolfpack, or as I say, quarterback U, because they had my guy Phillip Rivers and Russell Wilson. So, yeah, I will take NC State to win. Wake just had their season kind of get a little bit deflated from having a backdoor chance of making the college football playoff by losing in that massive shootout to the Tar Heels. And I don't know, I think these are pretty two evenly matched teams. But I think, again, if you look at resumes and just kind of more quality wins, I think NC State's just a slightly better team, which shows why the point spread is -1.5. Okay, for a team that only gets 3 at home. One of the kickers I've heard the last couple of weeks is the fact that Michigan State's stud running back Naylor, who was, in Heisman contender talks, was a Wake Forest running back. So if he not transfer portaled over to Sparty, could you imagine this Wake Forest team with a running back who's made himself a Heisman candidate in Michigan State playing for Wake Forest? They'd probably still undefeated, and they'd probably have a little more hype. That would have been a really fun story to see, just because, it's Wake Forest. That's a school we're used to hearing basketball about. So if they'd convince him to stay, this Wake Forest offense could be really, really damn good. Unfortunately, that didn't happen for them, though.
Yeah, I don't think that running back's going to stop them from putting 55 points on them, though. But, yeah, that is a good point.
No. Well,
that is kind of interesting. Yeah. That is a very interesting point. Then there's just those games flying under the radar that you wonder, Nevada, San Diego State. San Diego State's ranked again at 22. They're only a 3-point favorite at home. That's the latest game, 9:30. That's kind of interesting. All of a sudden, things get interesting because it's a road game at LSU, Arkansas, 2.5-point favorite. But as we know, good week, bad week. Is that what we're going to go with? Because, I'm not sure that there could be some action that pops off there. Mississippi State, Auburn, good game. I like Auburn at home, but that Mississippi State might jump back on them. Then here's a really big one. Michigan, number 6 in the country, above the team that just beat them in Michigan State, traveling to Penn State, Happy Valley. They're only a 1.5-point favorite. That could be a big upset, or an upset there, not a big upset, but I wonder what's going to happen there.
Well,
that's a good game.
It is, and honestly, I'm a little speechless on this one just because, as I said, the Big Ten, all those teams who are kind of fighting and contending for that top few spots are all going to have to play and battle each other out. If I had to pick a winner in this game, you got to take. I think just from how Harbaugh has performed for the last handful of years, I think you guys take this Penn State team just in the situation that's in. It's a big game for Michigan. They're on the road. Penn State, for the most part this year, I know their win-loss record doesn't look great, but they've played a really hard schedule. And I'm by no means do I like Penn State's coach. I think Franklin's an absolute pile of trash. But I would take him to win this game at home. This is kind of one of those games that Penn State just gets up for. They had the stinker against Illinois, but you got to prove me wrong, Harbaugh. Like these are games you lose. You were up 16 on your rival Sparty and you blew the game. Now you got to go to travel on the road again and play a really tough opponent. These are just games that Michigan has not won for the past 7 years. So I would easily take Penn State with the points, assuming Clifford is healthy. I think he is. But if there was any glimpses, the fact that Penn State's quarterback Clifford, who has been beat up, isn't healthy, then I could look at Michigan for sure. So I guess check the status of the Penn State quarterback, who is probably going to play, but if he's, 50%, what kind of effort we're going to get out of him, that's a whole different scenario.
Yeah, it's a good call. I'm going Michigan. I think that the differential of run, 234 to 106, I think that they're just going to find a way to sneak the game out. Might be a kick at the end. I don't know if they got a good kicker. But I wouldn't say that these are actually the games that they lose, to be honest. I think it's actually the games that, really, really, really count. Like 2 undefeated teams going head-to-head, right? And they just lost. Or that Michigan State where they blocked the punt, scooped, and scored. Or the Ohio State where did he get the first down or not? I don't know, but they're going to lose, So I think it's like in the biggest moment, that's where he's faltered, whereas they'll come out and look real good against other teams. They smacked Wisconsin around in the second half. So I like that game a lot, though. That is going to be interesting. That's right at 11. So I got Michigan in that one. I'm hoping my Minnesota squad in this weird year where there's, it's all tied up. 3 teams have 2 losses in the Big Ten West, and just how this year is in general. The Big Ten West is kind of playing out like the ACC Coastal this year. It's still on the table. That's the crazy thing about Minnesota is they still have Iowa and they have Wisconsin still on there. So if they just beat those 2, they're in it. And in this weird year, maybe they only beat one of them, and then some, Wisconsin stumbles. But it seems like Wisconsin has their shit together now. So unfortunately, I'm gonna go. We haven't won in Iowa since 1999, and they hadn't beat them in general since 2014 in a random ass whooping where the tight end was getting just a bunch of immaculate receptions in the red zone. Just a butt whooping. Other than that, I'm going to unfortunately have to go. Hopefully, I'm picking against my squad for a reason, but I like Iowa to get that dub. Any other items that you want to cover before we get to the crafty crappy pick of the week, which, we got off the schneid. The road team got off the schneid. We're 6-4 when it comes to that category.
Well, as I've been giving out a pick every week, like a gambling pick, which I've been doing pretty good on this year, and it feels nice to be ahead on Bills, as I'm sure you know, Chris. This is not a 5-star like bang the drum Purdue upset win, or lock win, but I do like taking Arizona State -5 at Washington. Washington, there's rumors of them firing their coach soon.
Right.
The team has kind of become a mess.
Playing two different quarterbacks.
Yeah, and the coach is just apparently just not well liked by media members, by the players. The team's in just not a good situation. And for Arizona State, you're still trying to win your division and go for contending for the Pac-12. So you have a team who, with Herm Edwards, who has a pretty good coach and a pretty damn good team. Arizona State did have a massive hiccup of a game a couple weeks ago against Washington State, which, I mean, you start off, you have 4 turnovers in the first half. That's pretty bad. But Arizona State came back last week. They beat USC. Maybe got back on track. But yeah, my pick of the week is take Arizona State -5.5 at Washington, just due to one team is still contending for a Pac-12 title, and the other team is considering firing their coach and has had a very, very rough year for a team that was getting a ton of preseason hype. That has turned to be a massive, just bad season for Washington.
And the first and hopefully the last, knock on wood, postponement of a COVID postponement, California and USC this week. So, man, remember last year when every week we'd be like, all right, well, there's only 4 this week, and then all of a sudden by the end of the week it'd be 8. And oh man, that was a rough one. So it's nice that we got all the way till November 10th really without having a postponement. So, and it's not even completely done yet. They still might play. All right, let's get back on the horse like we did last week. 6-4 on the year. The crappy pick of the week, sir.
I got a school that in our 9 years we've been doing this segment, I don't think this is their initial appearance.
Okay.
I love this. Just to F with you. Dear God, the Massachusetts Minutemen, who are not, strangers to this, are playing the Maine Black Bears. This game is at 12 o'clock Eastern.
I was going to say, can I get a time? Because I got to see this thing.
12 o'clock Eastern, November 13th. UMass is 1-8. Maine is showing his 0-1 on the year. UMass is a 1-point dog. Over under a 59. This is definitely a garbage game of the year, because it's been a pretty good debate for the last handful of years of who is the worst team in college football. And you could go back between UMass and Connecticut and Akron. But UMass is playing Maine. It is a 1-point spread. Take it away, brother, in this beautiful matchup in a weekend in November.
So I don't have the spread. When you said 1 interesting, because I got Maine at 4-5.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe this the article I was looking at was just maybe they're 0-1 in D1 games. Maine's like an FCS school.
Right. That's probably why.
So that's how bad UMass is the fact that they're a 1-point dog to a school that essentially is in a league below them.
This is tough, too, because I don't have any of there's no stats. There's no stats at all because they're in that other league. So I have shit. I'm kind of going a little blind here. Let me just look at what they have as far as – I do have who they've played at least, so – I just don't.
I do have a backup plan if you want. That'd be an easier game to do.
Well, no, it's fine. I mean, it is what it is.
Okay.
I just can't do all the stuff I like to break down, because it doesn't exist. this is weird because, going off of what you normally do, clearly, UMass is going to have played the harder teams. They put up 28. God, UConn is fallen so far that they've lost. That's their one win is UConn. Jesus, 27-30. That is bad. My goodness gracious. Liberty just put up a bunch of points on them. Boy, this one's tough. According to ESPN's Power Football Index, 53.6, they go with this main squad that has just been running through whatever division they're in.
FCS.
Right under. Division or conference.
Oh, got you. Sure.
I don't know the conferences. God, this one's tough, man. I really wish I knew what they did on offense or defense. God, this makes it tougher, not just because you can't see the stats, but do I pick another road team back-to-back after 9 straight home teams? Man, you really are trying to make it tough on us this year. Warren McGurk Alumni Stadium, $19 to get in. Oh, that's right, because that's in that area where there's rich people's kids go to school. So that makes more sense. Dude, this one's tough, man. God, I wish I could see what they do well, run or pass or whatever. Go to the Alumni real quick. Let me think about this shit. I gotta see.
Okay, sounds good. Yes. All right, so for the main famous Alumni, it is a little bit of political. Obviously, as you would assume, there's not a whole lot of superstars, famous alumni from Maine. You have George Bush, Percival Baxter, James Blaine. You have a bunch of people who literally have no connection to sports whatsoever. It is a pretty brutal list that it deals with people who have a slight military background. There's a lot of good authors. There's a guy named Biff Elliott who's a sportscaster.
Biff.
Biff, gotta give it to Biff. And when you're mentioning people just from the classic, Stephen King. Stephen King, okay, great author.
Just stop it right there.
And Nick DiApollo, who I know is a comedian.
Mm-hmm.
So that's Maine. Maine does not exactly have what you would consider a beautiful list of alumni.
Stephen King is tough to mess with, though.
Well, Stephen, true. Okay. Now there is Ben Bishop was a Tampa Bay Lightning goalie who was a good goalie in the NHL. This I didn't know. Rick Carlisle, who is one of the best NBA coaches of all time, who actually the Mavs just recently fired, he was at Maine, then transferred to the University of Virginia. So they're claiming him, Chris. They're claiming him. And Jack Capuano, who is a gritty blue-collar NHL coach who was the coach of the New York Islanders, went there. Okay, so their coaching tree is actually not that bad. You have a couple of very respected coaches and a couple of players that have a tie to hockey. You're in it. Jimmy Howard, AHL goalie for the Red Wings. So it is a hockey school. Also, Paul Kariya, the former famous Mighty Duck.
Okay. Let's get to the other one. Jesus Christ.
How
many times are we going to go low? Well, Jesus Christ.
You wanted me to find some alumni.
Steve King. I said let's stop it at Stephen King. You're up there naming 14, 17 guys. Jesus. Okay, go ahead.
For UMass, you got Richard Gere, Julius Irving, Rick Pitino. Obviously, that's where he started his great run as becoming a coach. Brianna Scurry, Victor Cruz, and the salsa dancing. We have talked about UMass this year. My boy Chaz Williams, who was the stud point guard at UMass, which took him like 3 NITs. I love that guy. He's like 5'4" and just a stud. Marcus Camby.
I was gonna say, where's the Camby?
Yeah, you got to talk about Camby. Jonathan Quick, if we're talking about NHL goalies, he's a good goalie, and he went to Maine, so we have a little bit of a goalie alumni battle here. And that pretty much wraps it up for UMass. A guy named Taj Mahal went to UMass, but I don't think that billions the timelines don't quite tie together there.
I mean, the Taj Mahal is a very famous thing anyway.
It is, but I would find it hard. I don't think they named it after a guy that went to UMass. That's a very unique name. Nonetheless,
I mean, how couldn't they? I mean, wouldn't that have to line up? You can't be Taj Mahal and then there's a Taj Mahal. Well, I suppose maybe your parents just love the place and they said, hey, our last name is, I think it's the guy. I don't know. But either way, let's wrap it up. We're at a 120 right now. Hour 20 minutes.
I'm giving the battle to Maine for the coaches and the author.
What? Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Julius Erving. Julius Erving, one of the best players of all time. Okay. And you know what? I'm going to go with the snooty Amherst crowd. Okay? Amherst, Mass. I'm going the freaking the rich kids place. I'm going with Maine to back. God. I don't know what the hell they do good, but what I do know is back-to-back. God, what am I doing this? You can hear it in my voice. I'm going to go Maine on the road to get the job done. Go to Amherst. Oh, wait. Yeah, go to Amherst and beat those rich kids out of their – they're going to take the ball and go home. So I got Maine very blindly. But make sure you check next time so we can have the offense and defense a little bit in there.
We'll do. All right, so on that note, we have our first ever FCS pick. It truly is the worst game of the week.
I mean, that just doesn't sound good, does it? It's just, I hope the audience could just hear that come off the tongue. My pick, I'm not too comfortable.
On that note, we appreciate the love and support. We love all of our listeners. We like you guys are for all of the follows. And hey, like I said, we got a lot of good football to talk about here soon because the playoff picture, I think, has potential to be a huge mess this year, which is fun drama to talk about. So until then, stay safe. Enjoy your soon-to-be Thanksgiving fun with your family this month. And the boys are out tonight. We'll be back next week with more football to talk about. Peace.